Today, book talk is gonna be about Girl on Girl and Lady Chatterley's Lover. With this book, I was actually very impressed, given that this book is almost 100 years old. It's basically 100 years old. Also, that it was written by a man. I actually found it to be quotable in some points, and also still relevant today. So these are things that I think could be talked about today. When I say things, they have a lot of conversations in the book, and they're usually philosophical. They usually are talking about capitalism or sex or gender, but that is how men are, ungrateful and never satisfied, is one of the quotes in the beginning of this book. I would say it's kind of slow. It's definitely longer than it needs to be. You know, I don't think it had to be this long to sum up what he was saying, and a lot of it feels like in the same way these conversations can kind of wander, or the thoughts of the characters can wander, the author, it feels like the author is wandering when he does that. And I guess in some ways it does make an atmosphere in the book which kind of makes sense to its general vibe. Yeah, it's either philosophical conversations, sex, or strolling around on the property. That pretty much makes up the book. Then for Girl on Girl, I impulse bought this at a bookstore when I was feeling like I needed to read feminism again. And also, I had been thinking a lot about pop culture today and how I feel like we're normalizing so much that's misogynistic, and if you like say that it's misogynistic, instead you're told that you're being misogynistic because feminism is letting women do whatever they want. But that's not what I believe feminism to be, is not just doing whatever you want, especially when your decisions aren't informed by the patriarchy, which I think that's been happening. So however, even though with this book I felt like I kept gravitating towards it, which is really good for me with reading, otherwise it's hard for me to read consistently, I kept going back to it and would read it for long periods of time. So I read this really quickly, maybe in 1 or 2 days. I just felt like I was expecting to get more out of it, more actual theory, personal theory by the author, but instead it was more so a retelling of pop culture history. I mean, it says in the subtitle how pop culture turned a generation of women against themselves. But I feel like I didn't hear as much as I wanted to about the women turning against themselves in today's world. I did get a history, no theory, which I was expecting to see. I'd just say that few pieces from the collection feel like they're actually expanded on, because there's so many different events in pop culture she talks about, but it doesn't feel like they're expanded on or given any theory. And of course you shouldn't have to expand on why rape, for example, is bad, but just writing down this was rape is not, I didn't see how this brought anything new to the table, to the discussion, and that could be an error in my sight, but it really just felt like this book was for like a fun read. But that doesn't make any sense at the same time, because we're talking about women being exploited and sexually assaulted and treated terribly, and I just feel like it wasn't really working for me. Between the two, I liked Lady Chatterley's Lover much more than I did Girl on Girl, but in sort of a weird way. I just thought that this was well done, and I mean, of course, that seems obvious to say because it's a classic, but This one just didn't really offer me anything new or anything profound, and I felt like I was expecting more from it personally, which kind of threw me for a loop because I would have expected this modern book to provide me with something more new, but this classic that's existed for 100 years brought me more than this one. I'd say like they're both still worth reading. Like this is still worth reading. It's just not what I expected.